Hey everybody, please note that this episode contains spoilers for the just completed second season of James Gunn's Peacemaker. You have been warned. Also, on a programming note, our coverage of the John Byrne comic book era will resume next week. But given the connections between Peacemaker and James Gunn's Superman saga in the DCU, I had to cut in this week to deliver this episode to you. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. Joining me to discuss Peacemaker Season 2, aka The Man of Tomorrow prequel, is the host of Always Hold On to Smallville, returning guest, Zach Moore. Welcome back.
Peacemaker, what a joke, Anthony.
You joined me on the Patreon show last year. We had a wonderful discussion about Peacemaker Season 1. Now, I did not go back and re-listen to it, but if memory serves, you and I were both pretty positive about Season 1, right? That's my memory. Overall, both of us enjoyed it.
Yeah, we were both went in kind of cautiously optimistic because like we thought the Suicide Squad was like, okay, solid movie, great. I wouldn't have made a TV show spinoff of that and as the top of my wish list, but we heard good things about it, and neither of us watched it live. We watched it like in order to do that podcast. But when we did watch it, we came away with it with a pretty positive overall opinion of it. And that made us, I guess, more eager for Season 2 than we were eager for Season 1.
And now that we have watched all of Season 2, big picture, how do you feel about it? Because we've been messaging along the way, but we've purposely not been saying too much.
Right.
And I don't know if people believe us or not when we say this, but it is true. We really do make a point to not spoil too much about what we think.
Part of the fun on these conversations, microphone for podcasts, is just the live reaction of like, oh, you thought that.
Yes.
So what did I think of Season 2, you asked?
Yes.
You know what? We can start here. If you had asked me before the finale, I might have a different answer than I have after the finale. Does that help you form your opinion?
Yeah. And I think that kind of lines up with mine as well. So we are recording and releasing this very shortly after the season finished airing. We've issued our spoiler warning. I'm assuming people have watched the episodes or at least have a general sense of what went on. There's also not a ton of plot to recap. This was far more of a character-driven season, which may be a plus or a minus, we'll discuss. But just to give the overview for anyone who might need a recap or might be coming to this episode down the line, the main thrust of Season 2 of Peacemaker is that you have a Christopher Smith who's been rejected by the Justice Gang, rebuffed by Amelia Harcourt, still reeling over his killing of his father in the first season, still dealing with this unprocessed childhood trauma over killing his brother when they were kids. And he finds himself increasingly retreating into this alternate dimension that he's able to access through the quantum unfolding chamber. And on this other world, his brother and father are alive, and there's this loving relationship, and they're the heroes of this Earth. Obviously, there's more to be revealed about that Earth, but it's deeply appealing to him. And so we see him spending more and more time in that world. And at the same time, we have the head of Argus, Rick Flag Sr., who is pursuing Smith and the quantum unfolding chamber, A, for the technology, but B, the more personal reason is revenge over Peacemaker's killing of Rick Flag Jr. in The Suicide Squad. So that's sort of our big picture overview of the season.
Yeah. I mean, that could probably take up 3 or 4 episodes. And then I don't think here's the thing, to answer your question. Now that you really laid it all out, it took me a little bit to really get into the season because I was like, they went full James Gunn went full James Gunn with this. As he's been quoted as saying, it's the like most fulfilling thing he's done in his creative career. I'm like, that's very insightful. But once they started going with the story and kind of like, I think it was the end of the second episode when he's exchanging the text messages with the alternate universe Harcourt. I was like, now I'm kind of locked in. Somebody can hold, because we've all done crazy things for love, right? Like we've all been there. Like I'm sure if I'm sure if I was offered an alternate dimension you could go to with some girl that I liked who didn't like me, but she liked me there, I would go. So like, I can latch on to that. I could now the sex fueled orgies, not so much. It's not so much my speed. So I really can't latch on to that, but I can latch on to the other stuff. And then when we got into the, I mean, that's a great, trope of sci-fi and comic books, alternate dimensions, right? Lean into it, right? I'm curious to go. I haven't, I didn't go back and watch season 1. I'm curious to see how much this quantum unfolding chamber changed between the seasons. Cause it was just kind of this afterthought in the first season. Like, oh yeah, his dad has this like TARDIS from Doctor Who for the uninitiated. I've only watched one episode of Doctor Who, the 50th anniversary. So who am I to speak? But I do know that's how the TARDIS works. You open a door and it's like a whole other world in there. And they didn't really delve into that at all. And now that's like, they really delve into it this season. It's the crux of the whole season. And then it turns out to be a certain Earth that we all know from the comic books, and that's its own conversation there. But I think that's a really smart jumping off point for a character who feels like not accepted, rejected, looking for redemption, can't find it. If you go through this door, you can find everything you ever wanted. Like that's an interesting moral dilemma for this character to be in. And I will say, despite any plot or story things, criticisms I'll have about the season, I do think the characters, all 5 of the 11th Street kids, I think they were all served very well, all acted, written, and performed very well this whole season. And that's why you would keep coming back to this, I think, because of these characters and your attachment to them and them continuing to put you in compelling situations. So that's where I'll start off.
Yeah, overall, I was a fan. I agree with you. I think when we get to that finale, that's where it gets a little dicier, and that's probably where I have the biggest critiques, I suppose. But throughout the season, had fun with it. My wife watched it with me. She had not watched season 1, but then she caught up on her own, and we watched all of the season 2 episodes together. And we had a great time watching and talking about them. She finds Vigilante hilarious. All the Vigilante stuff really landed with her. And we had a lot of fun. And yeah, I do think that from that emotional standpoint, I think the show delivered for both Chris Smith and, like you said, the rest of the 11th Street kids. You really see that this journey they go on, where they're coming from, where they end up. So yeah, I think on that front, I enjoyed it. I think my objections come more, again, in terms of the finale and in terms of how this intersects with the larger DCU, that whole side of it.
Yeah, it's like, should we wait and talk about that at the end? I don't know. We're talking here. I don't know. Like, because I feel like it's a whole nother conversation that we maybe should we like siphon that off to the end, or because I feel like that could take over the whole conversation if we go down that route.
Well, let's do it. We'll do it both ways, because here's the thing: the very first thing we see,
let's do it,
in Peacemaker season 2 is the retconned recap of season 1. So we can talk about that, and then we can talk about how this leads into the DCU later, so that doesn't dominate the whole conversation.
Sure.
But that was one of the things going into this that fans, including us, were wondering about, because we know there's been a lot of talk from Gunn himself about what is and is not canon to the new DCU. And so one of the big questions with Peacemaker season 1 specifically pertained to that final scene where you have Peacemaker carrying the injured Amelia Harcourt across the field and then runs into Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah.
Most of whom we only see in silhouette, but we do have Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa there as their characters, Flash and Aquaman. Yep. So it was an open question how that would be addressed. Now, well, I do know about you. I was going to say, I don't know about you. I did not watch or listen to the James Gunn Peacemaker season 1 podcast, where he went through each episode and explained what was or was not canon. But I think both of us caught little snippets here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I did not watch that because I am just tired of hearing him and seeing him talk about this stuff. Honestly, I have James Gunn fatigue just of the guy of seeing a new quote every day, a new clip every day. And to your point, even though I'm not going out of my way to seek it out, it doesn't matter, because if I open up Twitter and my algorithm, I'm a DC Universe podcaster guy. He's all over the place. So I've seen a lot of these clips. I did not watch the Peacemaker podcast starring James Gunn. I did not.
No, but my understanding is that, yes, he would go through each episode and I guess talk about it generally, but then also say what was or was not canon to the DCU. So in season 1, there were references to Aquaman, and he said, he's not quite sure the status of Aquaman in the new DCU, so that's not canon, right? So it was like that. And I'm sure there were people who went through all those podcasts and hung on every word, and awesome. I know one of the things, though, that he explicitly addressed was that business about the Justice League cameo, and he said it would be addressed. I wasn't expecting it to be addressed the way that it was here, where in the recap, we get these retcons. There are a few lines, most of which are ADR'd, right? Where you have Adebayo, for example, talking about...
You call them the Justice Gang.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of the Justice League. It's done very smoothly, by the way. We're making fun of it in the ADR fashion, but yeah, there's little clips that they tease you in. And yeah, like you, I was waiting for, I can't wait for this to be addressed. And then I realized, this is them addressing it in this previously on Peacemaker.
Yeah. And then you get to the end of it and that same scene of them in the field, but now it's the Justice Gang. And so we see Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl played by their portrayers, and they have dialogue. And then we see the silhouettes of Superman, Supergirl, and Mr. Terrific.
Yeah. Supergirl surprised me, actually, Anthony. Did it surprise you?
Based on what we saw in Superman, where she's just bouncing around these other planets, getting drunk and calling Superman a bitch. Yeah, I was a little surprised that she would be showing up in that circumstance.
Based off, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We'll probably talk about this at the end again, like you said, but based off seeing her silhouette here, knowing that her movie is the next project, I actually expected a Millie Alcock Supergirl cameo in the finale. Like, that was one of my predictions. Maybe even not the one we know. Maybe a one from another Earth. That was one of my predictions, because I thought, you want to tee up your next project, right, with that, and that's not what happened. But I was surprised to see her silhouette in that.
Yes, yeah. You would think that in a story where you're literally opening doors to all of these other alternate dimensions, that one of them might have a familiar face, even if it's a different version or some sort of weird twisted variation, but no, it's all right.
Well, like, I was a little like, I thought this was the laziest way to do this. I thought in the recap, because I thought, I think about this, everyone. The plot of this season is you go into a place where there's doors to every other reality. And the obvious thing to do is say that, that was another reality. I don't know exactly how you would do that, but I feel like you literally, the mechanics and of your story this season are about going between different universes. And that was a different universe we saw. But instead of taking that, like, right there on a platter for you explanation, they're like, we'll just do a funny thing in the recap to never be addressed again. So I'm like, and here's the thing, like, I feel like I'm a continuity person. I get really caught up in this. This stuff gets me excited about the universes when I feel like I connect the dots. And that's why I podcast for hours about episodes of television that are 45 minutes long. Stuff like that. And then one school of thought is, dude, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it. It's fine. And sometimes it's like, okay, you look at the X-Men movies and they clearly are like, don't even worry about it. It's fine. And you know what? Salute to you, right? But then it's like, to your point, we're having a podcast after every episode where he's basically got a blackboard out telling you what's not canon. So it does matter. Clearly it does. So why is it so confusing? Why is it so complicated? Like, I don't know. I'm conflicted on it as well, because obviously comics are different than TV shows and movies and all this. But this all stems from the fact they didn't do a hard reboot like we said they should have, Anthony. That's why we are where we are. That's why we're 15 minutes in this conversation. And we're not even talking about the season. We're talking about how it connects to the last universe where this TV show started in. So that's where we are. That's where I am with it. I've said my piece, I feel, on that front. I don't want to go on any longer. I could probably keep ranting, but that's where I am.
Yeah. I like I said, I was surprised that was the way they did it. I messaged this to you, but I wasn't joking. I meant it. I'm genuinely surprised they didn't put out a recut version of season 1, like Peacemaker, the DCU remix. And basically like Gunn already did the work in those podcasts, right?
Yeah.
You get an editor to go in, a little snip here, snip there, little ADR line, basically what we got in that recap, but incorporated into the season, a slight re-edit. And then, now I don't know if you or I would have gone this far, but I guarantee people would have rewatched and dissected and done their own podcasts on the recut version of Peacemaker season 1. I just feel like it was right there for the taking.
Yeah, and being on HBO Max, which, by the way, HBO Max is back. when Peacemaker season 1 started, it was HBO Max and it went to Max and now it's back for HBO Max. They even had a good in the marketing for season 2. They even had a good joke about that. And they're like, "What, really? It changed again?" Like James Gunn and John Cena and all them. That's a great idea. Why not just have like you have 2 versions of every one of those season 1 episodes? That helps their streaming numbers. And it's very minor work. It's very minor stuff. Like you said, ADR here, snip there. The big work was the finale, which they already did. Yeah, that would have been, that's a great idea. They could still do it. If you're listening, James Gunn,
yeah,
do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That just felt like a missed opportunity. Like I said, I was surprised. I don't know what I was expecting. I mean, you're right. In a scenario where you've got all these other dimensions, that would have been one way to account for it. I guess in my speculation, I was expecting something along the lines of like Peacemaker talking about that encounter with the Justice League and someone else being like, what are you talking about? Like, who the F is Aquaman? Like, it was so-and-so.
Oh, the Flash, really clever name. Yeah, you mean Mr. Terrific or whatever? Like, that would have been more in line with the show.
Yeah, right? And he's like, oh, these costumed assholes, they all look the same to me. I don't know who they like, something like that. I felt like they could have gone down that road, but that's not what we got. And in fairness, it was quick and clean the way it was done here. You watch that recap, you're like, oh, okay, we're off. Now, you mentioned the orgy, right? So there is this very explicit orgy scene in that first episode. And this points to a question or a debate that I saw some folks having online about whether or not essentially it was appropriate given the fact that fans of Superman were kind of directed to now watch the next chapter in the DCU saga, which then, as we find out, feeds into the chapters still to come. Curious where you land on this. Is that something that you're like, yeah, like that's not right? Or like, how'd you feel?
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Because if your kid is watching Superman on HBO Max and it ends, you know what's going to pop up? You might also like Peacemaker season 2. Oh, okay. And then you click. That's how an 8-year-old sounds in my head. Oh, okay. And then you click on that. And then you get this first episode, I don't know, 20 minutes of it. Just drugs, sex, rock and roll. And here's the thing, right? Again, and I feel like we touched on this in our season 1 discussion. I don't want to be over here sounding like a prude, but I'm saying like, look, James Gunn, I know you love all this stuff. And when you exist in your little pocket, like do whatever you want with this stuff. But you have connected this to your most family, like everybody. What is one of people's most cherished things about the new Superman movie? Oh, it's so family friendly. Finally, a DC movie I can take my kids to. The last ones were so dark and serious. And now it's like, kindness is the new punk rock, and so is like orgies apparently. So here we are. I like if this was again like a little section over here. Like if it's like the Vertigo label or the Black Label comics of DC Comics, the way they do it, sure, whatever, of course. But when this is in the main line of your continuity and there's a direct line between Superman and then Man of Tomorrow, then we'll see where Supergirl fits into that. I think you went a little too far in some places, James.
I think it's very wholesome. I mean, it conveys the message when we get to that scene with the Justice Gang that telling someone they perform fellatio well is not a knock. It's a compliment. And I feel like that's the sort of positivity that we need to have out there. No, look, it's one of those things where so my son is 6, right? So he has not seen the Superman movie. We've watched the first 10 minutes when they put that on YouTube, and he was interested. And I am going to sit him down and try to get through the whole thing. But we're not yet at the point where he's really consuming all of this stuff. So it doesn't really affect me yet, right? I know you don't have kids. So like it doesn't affect us personally, but
yeah.
What I will say, so over the summer, our local Alamo Draft House, they played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, the most recent animated Turtles movie, which came out just a couple of years ago. And I took my son to see it. This was in that stretch of time after camp, before school. We need some stuff to do. And I'm like, hey, let's do this. Man, did he love it. This was the one Seth Rogen was one of the producers of.
Okay.
It went over great with the little guy and with me. It was fun. And then I find out that the current animated series on Paramount Plus, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is set in the same world and is a bridge between the first movie and the forthcoming sequel. And we watched season 1 of that, and season 2 is coming out soon, and we can't wait. And we got all the toys. It's been a blast. And I bring this up because if it had been the case that like we watched Mutant Mayhem in the theater and we were so pumped, and then we couldn't watch that bridge, Yeah, like that would have been a real bummer. So for parents out there who are in that same situation with Superman and Peacemaker, like I get it. I do get the frustration. That would bother me as well.
Well, also, I mean, what the building this new DC universe, right? There are 3 projects so far. It's Creature Commandos, which I have not watched, but it's pretty mature as well.
Yes.
If you want to call it that, right? Adult, whatever the terminology you want to use. And they get Superman, which is like, yay, family friendly, kid friendly, everybody loves Superman, right? And then you have this, and I'm like, so 2 out of your 3 projects are your fun new family friendly DC universe. So this very, mature, not suitable for all audiences. I'll put it that way. That's probably the best term to use. Not suitable for all audiences. And I'm like, okay, like I don't know. I feel like that's a strange choice. But we know why Peacemaker season 2 is here, because he had planned it and basically written the whole thing before the reboot came down. And it's like, I don't know, could you adjust your script some? Like, I'm not even saying making it G, like PG-13 is like a nice line to draw. So not to go on and on about this, but
yeah, no, I guess that's the last thing I'll say about it too, is that, there's not, like, I don't think it would have taken so much to get it to a point where, okay, I still really wouldn't recommend this for little kids, but okay, we're walking a little bit more of a line here, but yeah, like that orgy scene in particular,
I mean,
it's like so aggressive. So there's that. One other very early thing here, because this is a big part of the Peacemaker experience. And I know we don't have your buddy and my friend as well, Lance Laster, to sing it, but the opening dance number. So we had "Do You Want to Taste It" by Wigwam in season 1, big hit, everybody loved it. This season, new song, "Oh Lord" by Foxy Shazam. How did this work for you? Did you like this?
I remember last time you asked me, did you ever skip the intro? And I said no. This time I did a couple times because I was so thrown. I was like, so I watched the first one all the way through. I'm like, why did they change the song? That's like iconic, with like maybe just iconic to us because we sing the song. Shout out to Lance again for that. But I was like, why did you change it? I'm like, why did they change the song in Smallville season 2? I would have been like, how dare you, right? So I don't know. To me, it was iconic with the show. Maybe they didn't see it that way. Maybe they always saw it as every season we'll change it up, and I just was coming from a misunderstanding of it, right? And then, like, as the show went on and on, I was like, all right, I'll watch it. And it grew on me over time, because I'm like, I just can't not watch this. I mean, that feels wrong to skip the intro every time. Give it its fair shake. So I feel like I probably skipped it like the 2nd or 3rd episode. And then by like the 4th or 5th, I started watching it again. And, eventually, I mean, it works. It's fine. But I associate the Wigwam song with this series so tightly that it was kind of a shock.
It's funny. You're like, oh, maybe they figure they'll change it every season. You mean both seasons?
Well,
because that's all we're getting. But I guess we'll get to that. I look, at first, it definitely took some getting used to, but man, it really did win me over. I didn't skip it at all. And I don't know, I'd have to go to my Amazon Music plays, but I'm almost certain I listened to "Oh Lord" more than "Do You Want to Taste It" outside of the show. And
okay.
Look, the song last season, a ton of fun, no denying that. But this one certainly lyrically is much more meaningful. Yeah. And I was reading an interview with the lead singer of Foxy Shazam. He wrote the song for his son. And, there's life advice: the world will eat you alive, but always be there for you, and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like it was more meaningful, and it definitely grew on me. And I guess maybe from their perspective, the stoic dance number to a song, like that's their theme, so to speak. Like that's what's not going to change, but the specific song will. So yeah, it took some getting used to, but it really did win me over ultimately.
Okay.
This is so weird and random, but it's been in my head, so I have to share it. So, the first time you hear a song, and I was not familiar with this song or this band like at all before. Were you?
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is pretty obscure and typically in the James Gunn wheelhouse, right? And shining the spotlight, and that's great. So the first time you hear a song, for me at least, right, it takes you a minute to get your bearings. You're not quite sure what you're hearing yet. And so there's the part in the song, because there is always a wrong to your right. Did you watch Charles in Charge as a kid?
No, but I know of it.
Yeah. I won't sing it, but the theme's like Charles in Charge of our days and our nights, Charles in Charge of our wrongs and our rights. The first time I heard this, and I heard and again, I'm watching the dance, like I'm not totally dialed into the lyrics at first, but I hear there's always a wrong to your right. And there was a split second where like, is this like a rock version of the Charles in Charge theme? I'm like, man, James Gunn's freaking weird, but all right. Obviously, it wasn't that, but for a
Yeah.
moment, that's what it reminded me of. And every time I watched it, I was thinking of Charles in Charge. So anyway, that's our big opening number. So, we talked about how this was not as plot heavy. I mean, the first season they were trying to stop this alien invasion. I feel like my memory, at least, is that the episodes had a little bit more thrust, a little more momentum, where these felt a lot slower, more character focused. I mean, how did that play for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of more, I don't know, urgency last season, I would say. I didn't really compare the episode lengths this time. I know the finale was the longest one. Ironically, we'll get there. But yeah, that is something I would say just plot wise. Like, I wish there was more of a ticking clock of some kind, because there was just, like, yeah, they want their job back and he might be doing this there. And I'm like, how much time's passing? What's going on? How much, like, there was no, yeah, I guess just driving force really, other than I guess Rick Flag Sr. Popping in and out. Because I mean, because, and again, their objective was character stuff here, right? And there was a lot of great character stuff this season. We'll talk about that as we go, obviously. But plot wise, like, how many times was Argus pulling up in vans, showing up to some house, and like, oh, we missed him again? Like, I felt like that happened like 3 or 4 times. Not even exaggerating. I really feel like that happened 3 or 4 times. And that's why I was kind of joking at the beginning, like, yeah, it sounds like we got enough plot here for about like 4 or 5 episodes, maybe, and we have 8. Because yeah, like I look at this season and written, I think, entirely by James Gunn. He directed most of the episodes, not all of them, but he wrote all of them. And much like Superman, in my opinion, I feel like, if you did another draft, you can kind of tighten a lot of this stuff up, James. But he's his own boss. So there's no, I guess, other than Peter Safran, I guess, is his co-boss. Maybe he has some oversight, but I feel like we could have tightened some of those screws on the stories, and maybe had a 7-episode season or something. I don't know if they get a mandate to fill out these X amount of episodes. I know Marvel, it seems to work that way, where it's like, hey, I know we were going to do a movie about this, but let's split into 6 episodes instead. That's the Marvel TV formula for, it's hit or miss over there. I mean, this is the only DC TV show in the DCU. I mean, the Penguin was 8 episodes, but I mean, that has no bearing on this. I don't know how they decide the length of that sort of thing. So I guess it's a really long way of saying less story, more character. And the character stuff was good, but I feel like they could have tightened the screws on the story side of this season.
Yeah, like when you say it could have used a ticking clock of some sort, I think a little bit of that would have gone a long way for me, just to kind of juice the proceedings a little bit. But to their credit, I think that this season did a good job of taking Chris Smith to the point where he writes that goodbye letter and departs for this alternate universe forever, as far as he's concerned. And so,
yeah,
I guess, yeah, maybe did they need as many episodes to do that? They probably could have shaved off at least one, but I do appreciate that at least they took us and that character on that journey to the point where, okay, like, I get why he's at such a low point. Now, one of the things, and I mentioned this early on, that happens, and this is right in the first episode, he has his interview to join the Justice Gang at this really kind of rundown strip mall. All right. And he goes in, and we have James Gunn's brother, Sean Gunn, as Maxwell Lord. We had that little tiny cameo on the TV screen at the end of the Superman movie, but now we get a full scene with him. And of course, we have Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl. Yeah, what did you make of this scene? Because here's the thing: for all of the talk about this being the prequel to Man of Tomorrow, and we'll get to the big Lex Luthor cameo and his underlings who pop up here, but this ended up being, in my opinion, like pretty light as far as DCU cameos go. I was certainly expecting more, but we do get the Justice Gang here. What'd you make of this scene?
Well, I'm not surprised Mr. Terrific has no part of this, because he seems like a much more respectable member of the Justice Gang. Yeah, this little bits of this were in the trailer too, so I think that led us to believe they would be playing a bigger part perhaps in this season. But yeah, I guess I expected more from the Justice Gang, because that's it. Like, they have their previously on, and they have their interview with him. This is also the only part of the whole season where Peacemaker wears his costume, which I was a little surprised by, because it's so interesting to me. Like, John Cena wears this costume everywhere. That's like his thing. I'm like, hey, bro, I respect it. I mean, you're a Peacemaker and you love it, and you're going to wear that costume, that helmet everywhere you go, every appearance you make promoting this show. Hey, more power to you. But it's kind of crazy that he wore it more like in real life now they did on the show, because this interview scene's the only, unless I'm I mean, I guess he wears the alternate universe Peacemaker costume a little bit when he's over there doing stuff, but like the big helmet and the same costume that he's worn in Suicide Squad in season 1, this is the only moments he wears it. So that surprised me.
Still more than Tom Welling ever wore that Superman costume.
That's the thing. I even tweeted about that. I'm like, you know what? Not the first superhero TV show I've watched a finale of where the hero didn't wear the costume.
Let me ask you this, because Tom Welling now, of course, he does all of these convention appearances, including the dedicated Smallville convention that you've been to. If Tom Welling were to show up at a panel in a Superman costume, would you be like, oh man, this is great? Or would you be like, son of a bitch, like you had your chance to do it. It's too late.
I would feel both simultaneously at the same time. I think I feel like there's a lot of people, because I really wanted him to wear the costume of Christ on Infinite Earths, because I feel like they would have healed all wounds, and I still like that appearance. But I know a lot of people, because obviously we've all talked about this for a lot of people over the years. A lot of people would say, no, he didn't wear it to the show. He shouldn't wear it ever now. Like, so they have that opinion. You blew it, man. I don't know. I think he's getting so chill about stuff. I think in the next 5 years he might show up at like Smallville nights in a Party City, well, not Party City because they're out of business. A Spirit Halloween Superman costume. We'll see Tom Welling in.
Yeah, I could see something like this. Yeah, I mean, this one scene, I don't know. It's weird from the perspective of watching this as a Peacemaker show. It worked for me because you really felt for Chris in that scene.
They're just talking so much shit about him.
Yeah.
He can hear it. They don't know that he can hear him, which is why he hears all these horrible things they're saying about him. You really did know. It puts you in the right mindset. If I were him, I would get out of this universe too.
Yeah, and he's being very honest and thoughtful and self-reflective, right? When they ask him about all the people he's killed, and he's like, yeah, like I haven't always been discriminating in my use of violence, and it stems from this unprocessed childhood trauma. Like he's really in touch with his emotions, and it's just falling on deaf ears. So you really feel
how many more losers do we have? Like that's just worst job interview fear ever is the people you're talking to just not caring what you have to say, right?
Yeah. Now, look, this is our first kind of substantial look at Maxwell Lord. So, okay, this is who this guy is. We've spent enough time with Guy, and we know Guy from the comics. The way he played here, tracked to me generally. Although, he had his moment in the Superman movie where he showed up when it counted, but he's still ultimately a dick. So the fact that he comes off the way he does here, I get. Did Hawkgirl ring true? I mean, I don't know that we've gotten enough from her to really say for sure, but she was the one that felt like a bit of an outlier here, where I'm like, is this how she would be behaving?
I mean, I still have no read on her as a character, really, other than she assassinates world leaders without consequences.
Yeah, and then they're giving Chris Smith a hard time about his killing. It's like, what about this one? Drop this guy to his death.
I'm not like Superman, yeah. No, I feel like they're keeping her blank slate for now. Just to be determined. Like they can do anything with this character at any point, and it won't feel out of character because no character has been established. It's just how it is, right? I mean, when you have all these characters and like you don't have time to delve into all of them, and she's definitely the least developed of anybody who was on the Justice Gang or the superheroes so far in this universe, and so they're keeping it that way. It looks like for now. Yeah, I have a few patron comments and questions. Let's go through those. I think that'll elicit a good bunch, and then whatever we don't hit, we'll go through. So this is from Logan. He says, does anyone else feel like we missed an opportunity if we're going to do Earth X, not saving Michael Rooker for Uncle Sam? So James Gunn favorite Michael Rooker does appear here as this, what do we even call him? This shaman type character who can commune with birds. What does Economos call him? Like Captain Cultural Appropriation? I think that was pretty spot on. Yeah, he's brought in to hunt and kill Eagly, but of course Eagly ultimately gets the better of him in the end. Now, again, you and I, we're not hanging on James Gunn's every word, but some of it is just inescapable. And I do know he has said that Michael Rooker appearing as this character does not preclude him from coming back as somebody else in the DCU, but rather Gunn was in a bind. I forget exactly what went down, but he needed someone to fill this role. And he went to Rooker, but said you could still be somebody else. So you never know. Well, he was already somebody else in the Suicide Squad, as was his brother, Sean Gunn. So both of them are in the Suicide Squad as different characters, different DC comic villain characters. Calendar Man for Sean Gunn, and then I forgot the name of the Rooker's character in Suicide Squad, who you think is going to be like the main character, and then he dies in the first 10 minutes killing a bird. Yeah, you see this is the kind of, and you guys know me by this point. I'm very critical of the James Gunnisms of it all. This is the kind of thing that makes me look at this and like, this is James Gunn hanging out with his buddies, doing silly stuff, just having a good time. Which is, hey, you know what? He has every right to do that. He is the boss. He can do that if he wants. But it's like, dude, this whole subplot could be cut entirely too. Like this eagle hunter, like that's one of the first things I would take out. It does nothing. And then he's the prime eagle and all this stuff they're talking about. Like, what are we doing? Only to me, it seems like only to get your boy Michael Rooker in here and give him something to do for 3 episodes. And that's what I'm talking about.
So I agree. The only thing I'll say is that we get to the point where Economos shoves Rooker down to save Eagly, and Rooker hits his head on the rock, and it seems like he's dead. And at that point, I was like, oh, that's funny. It's like you bring this guy, this actor in, you set him up like he's going to be this big thing. Economos, of all people, takes him out and inadvertently kills him. Like, great. Like, that's actually kind of funny to me. The fact that he survived and then went on this whole spirit quest, that lost me. I'm like, yeah, like exactly to your point. Like, that's something that should have hit the cutting room floor or cut in the script stage.
But who else would you like to see him play then if he can come back? Because I had predicted he could possibly play General Sam Lane in Superman. He didn't. We haven't met Sam Lane yet, but I think he's a perfect guy to play that kind of character.
Yeah.
If, you know,
I haven't given Michael Rooker a lot of thought, I'll be honest, but yeah, I like that. I like that casting. I would be down to see him as Sam Lane.
Yeah. His third character in the DCU, if he comes back for it, just for the record.
Well, but you know, to what extent is the Suicide Squad hard canon? Now, here's the thing, Zach, when someone specifically references an event from the Suicide Squad or from something else in a prior project, then that aspect becomes canon. But
I really should be watching these James Gunn podcasts to understand this better, Anthony. Thank you. See, now I feel like I'm rubbing off on you. You're being all positive and happy. I'm over here with my sarcasm about James Gunn, and you're coming back at me with it.
I've been positive enough about the Superman movie. But I know.
You guys know why we're saying what we're saying. Okay, I think we're being perfectly fair.
Yeah, we'll have more to say too. Well, might as well just say it now. So, speaking of the Suicide Squad, we get an appearance here by Rick Flag Jr. We see him. Yep. We had been seeing, and we continue to see the scene from the Suicide Squad where Peacemaker kills him. But then we get this flashback. It turns out that Amelia Harcourt and Rick Flag Jr. were friends and also had a sexual relationship, despite the fact that Rick Flag Jr. was in a relationship with June Moon, which is a callback to Suicide Squad. But I don't think that the implication is that much, if anything, from that iteration is canon per se.
Well, yeah, I guess, but why? This is why this is why you need a hard reboot, because I cannot believe we are sitting here in the Overlord 2025 talking about Suicide Squad as still part of anything. Is it the worst? Did I think it was worse than The Flash? I don't know. I think I did. It's the worst movie of the DCEU, and we're still referencing back to it. Important characters are still here. Viola Davis is the one through line through it all because she was Waller in that. I don't know how I feel about. I don't know how I feel about the Rick Flag thing, because he was a nothing character in Suicide Squad. They actually made him a very different kind of charismatic, compelling character in the Suicide Squad. So when he was murdered by Peacemaker, which was a great turn of events, and that whole fight between them is so cool, and we obviously keep referencing it in the Peacemaker shows, I was like, wow, that really meant something. And then they bring it back and like he was like cheating on Enchantress. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. Well, if they break up with her, she's gonna like burn a hole in the earth. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess maybe. I don't know. Like, is this character assassination? I don't know.
How do I put this? I feel like we probably assume Gunn is tired of questions about what's canon and what's not. Like I assume he would not want, but I don't know. Maybe not, because I would have to imagine, right, if you're writing that scene and you want to go down this route, like you want to bring back that character, you want to reveal. And look, it is important because it does establish why Harcourt had been as antagonistic towards Peacemaker.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
right?
I don't mind that at all. I actually think that's a pretty clever layer to add onto it.
Yeah, so you do that, great, and you're going to make it so debatable whether or not you should make it that he's running around on his girlfriend. But it's like, okay, if you're going to add that layer to it and you're going to name the girlfriend, that's a specific choice. to reference the character from the movie that ostensibly you're trying to distance your new cinematic universe from. So to me, it's just a curious choice. But look, I don't know. I mean, it looks like he had fun doing his podcast, saying what was canon, what was so. I don't know. Maybe this is fun for him. All right. Duncan says, I really enjoyed the season. I thought Happerson took a bit of a left turn. I kind of got the impression from Superman he had good intentions and didn't realize the height of Luthor's insanity, but he seemed to be quite readily going along with Flagg's plans. So Happerson, of course, enters the picture after this Lex Luthor cameo and helps Rick Flag pinpoint the location of this dimensional portal.
Yes, who I referred to as Sonny Bono until this show because he has a name. He's actually from the comic books. He looks this way because he looks this way in the comic books. I've been told. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. I mean, are these the cameos you're promised? And not that I'm like Mr. Give Me cameos, but James Gunn himself promised, hey, stay tuned. There's going to be some big cameos coming up here at the end of Peacemaker. I'm like, oh, these guys that work for Lex. I mean, look, it makes sense, and we'll get to Lex, right? It makes sense they couldn't just get Lex out of prison to do these things. So sure, get his crew, right? I mean, that's fine. I really don't care, but that's fine. Continuity, like familiar faces. Again, that's all really comes to a head in the finale, which is my most like frustrating episode of the whole thing. But up until then, I was like, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I didn't ascribe too much integrity to Happerson from the beginning, so I didn't feel too put off. I didn't need to know about his Pornhub habits, but
see, I get always a step too far, James. Always a step too far with this stuff. You just have, can we just cut that line? Can we just cut that? Also, by the way, just a greater question since you mentioned that. These post-credit scenes, are they extensions of things we saw, or are they like blooper reel outtakes? What are they? How did you interpret these things?
Oh,
or did I just think about it too much?
No, I mean, like kind of both, I would say. Like, I don't think they're,
are they they're canon? I need James Gunn to tell me on his podcast.
I think they're canon, but yeah, I take it as they're extensions of scenes or I think mostly they were extensions, not even so much variations, but I think they're extensions where probably the actors were just riffing. I mean, maybe it was scripted, right? But it felt like do one for you, like whatever you want to do, go have fun with it. And then that's what ended up there. I don't think a single one made me laugh. I'd have to go back and watch them all again, but it was one of those things where I'm like, all right, like fine.
I think maybe the one with Economos and Tim Meadows, I think I found most amusing. Right. Because I like Tim Meadows mostly in this. But hey, half step back though to the first question there about Uncle Sam. Michael Rooker would have been perfect. And I thought to myself, like, oh, was that older guy supposed to be Uncle Sam? Like, and when he kills all those people, and anyway,
yeah,
maybe we might never see Earth X again. Who knows? But anyway, let's go on.
I know. And Duncan's last comment, he said, I thought Cena's performance in episode 7 was utterly outstanding. Yeah, I mean, his acting chops. I mean, credit where credit's due.
I mean, John Cena. I mean, fantastic actor. Dave Bautista as well. You mentioned the Smallville convention. Salute to Smallville. Somebody asked Tom Welling about what it was like working with, WWE stars, and Welling was like, yeah, you do these crossovers and it's like the networks like trying to push something with something else, and these guys come in and you don't know what to expect. But he's like, these wrestlers, they are the most professional, on point, on time people. They understand, because he's like choreography. I mean, they're on it. So they have to know ABC. They're so prepared. He's like, he had nothing but praise to say about the wrestlers who came in he worked with on Smallville. Batista being one of them, for example. Kane, another one. I know there was, I think there was like 3 total, I think, over the course of the show. All that to say, like, I think it's taking wrestlers and turning them into superhero actors is genius. Like, that pipeline needs to continue. I just think there's such a great crossover there. It's been hit or miss for everybody, I know, but like I've enjoyed all of these guys coming over into these universes, and John Cena continues to like. I'm not a wrestling fan. I don't know. I couldn't tell you how he does at WrestleMania or whatever, but seeing him here, fantastic stuff. Because I mean, I think he's referencing that emotional breakdown when he sees his brother dying again, and how that PTSD just comes over him, and that fantastic stuff.
Yeah, he was great, and then even just interviews, convention appearances, he really seems like a tremendous ambassador for the show and the DCU. So yeah, right on. More of a comment from Chris McKenzie, who says, overall, I really enjoyed this season. It was more focused on character instead of action, but I'm okay with that. I'm fairly confident we'll get a follow-up project with these characters, a Checkmate series or film maybe, and that Chris will somehow get back to the main DC universe. I thought all the actors did a great job this season, especially Danielle Brooks, who gave us the best moment of the series in the final episode. Finally, it's very cool that not only do we have multiple queer characters, but we also have queer characters of color, a rare thing even these days. I can't wait to see where these characters go from here. She was great, and she had some two heavy emotional scenes in that finale. Now, obviously, I'm sure they split it up in terms of the filming, but they play almost back to back in the episode here. The parting with her estranged wife, and then that big motel scene intervention with the 11th Street Kids and Chris, where she makes this emotional plea to him about how, all these bad things happen, but they happen when he was listening to other people, right? And he needs to listen to himself, and look at what all of these people have done for him. Even Economos, the coward, stepped up.
Yeah, true.
Great. Yeah, she was fantastic, I thought.
Oh, I gotta say, that is one of the best breakup scenes I've ever seen in anything. Like, it's so true to life, and it's like, look, we still love each other, but we're wrong for each other. If I stay with you, I'm gonna be upset. If you stay with me, I'm gonna talk, because at first I was like, why do they do this to their relationship? Why do they break them up? What's that about? Totally worth it for this scene here at the end, because they come to this understanding. I don't know. That's one of the best breakup scenes I've seen. So to a finale, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, that scene, and then of course the scene in the hotel where they're all together and they're talking Chris out of his depression there. The two best scenes of the episode. Absolutely, I totally agree about Lee Waller. Now is that what we're gonna call her? Maybe that Waller show is gonna be her show now. That's what I think, Anthony. I think that's what's gonna happen next, but we'll see.
Yeah, I know. We will. All right. Jared says, overall, I like the season. Definitely a different beast from the first season. I really like where the rest of the crew ended up with creating Checkmate, and I need to find out what happened to Chris. And he says some questions. What did you think of the Luthor cameo? I liked it, though I have to say it was wild hearing Lex Luthor say lines like, a bear-like creature with dragon scenes, but effing a twink with cartoon eyes. Yeah, that was a little jarring. Again,
James, take a step back. All right. You have it at a 12. Let's take it back down to a 6. Like I totally, it's like edge. Never have I used the term edgelord more than describing all this stuff. It's like, dude, if I could say Lex Luthor's going to say, but we don't need that. We don't need that, James. I don't know. I totally agree.
Yeah, it definitely was jarring. Now this was spoiled for you, right? The fact that Nicholas Hoult made this appearance.
Because I didn't watch the episode immediately as it aired.
Yeah.
I opened my phone at 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday. It was Lex Luthor everywhere. So, my own fault for not, making it appointment television, Anthony.
Yeah. Yeah. I did watch it basically live. I mean, they've been dropping at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we started watching just a few minutes after. So thankfully I was able to just go in and watch it and not have it spoiled. And I mean, in retrospect, it's like, I don't know why I was a little slow on the uptake there, because when Flag is like, contact the warden at Belle Reve, I need to talk to one of the prisoners. And even when you saw the figure, you didn't see his head yet, but you see somebody limping. Like, I was like, who is it? I was on the edge of my seat. But no, I was definitely excited when I saw Nicholas Hoult as Lex. I definitely thought that it was pointing towards more appearances from folks from the Superman world in the episodes to come. That's on me though. I that's fine. I'm not a critique of the show necessarily. But yeah, I mean, I like knowing that we're getting to the Man of Tomorrow, and you and I, we did a whole episode about that announcement. But knowing that we're getting to this Lex Luthor centric film coming up in the Superman saga of the DCU. I mean, I was happy to see Lex here, that line aside, as part of that connective tissue. And the fact that now we're seeing this alignment of interests between Flag and Lex with respect to the metahuman population. And obviously Lex was in the air from the start of this because there was all that business with the pocket universes, these bridges between locations and the Superman movie and that rift that Lex opened. So it had been talked about a lot, and then to bring him in and now have him working with Rick. Yeah. I mean, all that I enjoyed.
Yeah, after we saw him in, I think, episode 6, I'm like, oh, we're absolutely going to see Superman in this season finale, I thought, for sure. But that's our own fault, But I will say James Gunn really hyped up the finale and all the cameos we were going to see. So I think it's 50-50. I think I'll take 50% blame on that for myself. But yeah, you know what? This is our Lex Luthor, like I said in our podcast. I'm like, I hope they continue to do interesting things with him. And they leave the scene where obviously he's like, well, I guess I'm not gonna have freedom, huh? And Flag tells him a path to redemption, whatever that looks like. They bring him in as a consultant. Like, he's going to weasel his way out of there somehow. And this is the start of that.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
We all love the big-budget superhero films, but the world of independent cinema remains a place of creative freedom and entrepreneurial spirit. Whether you're an independent filmmaker yourself or you just love movies, don't miss these New Jersey festivals. Brightside Tavern in Jersey City, Hang On to Your Shorts in Asbury Park, and Round Reel in Bloomfield. And now they're joined by the Shorts and Stout Film Festival in Long Beach, New York. Event details, as well as submission information for filmmakers, can be found at filmfreeway.com. As a Superman fan, have you ever wondered what would happen if a person who knew barely anything about comics decided to absorb hundreds of Superman stories from all eras and media? Robbo is that kind of person, and that's exactly what he's done on a new show called This Podcast Will Never Die. The first season, called Superman Will Never Die, starts with all the unexpected ways the Man of Steel stood out from the pulp heroes on the newsstands in 1938. Listen and subscribe to This Podcast Will Never Die, and you'll never look at Superman's trunks the same way again. We love digging into epic comic book runs, but what about the art of the single issue? Single Bound is a new podcast series hosted by married couple Amy and Logan as they review single issues of comics. And if the title also makes you think of Superman, you're not alone, as the Man of Steel is Logan's favorite character and a regular topic of discussion on Single Bound. Listen and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube, and follow the show on Instagram at Single Bound Podcast. Fat Moose Comics, established in 1982, is New Jersey's best and oldest comic book store. Led by current owner Sean Hendricks, Moose has that rare, old-school comic shop feel and camaraderie, yet also remains a welcoming space for new fans. If you're looking for something and they don't have it, they can probably get it for you. They know a guy. Visit Fat Moose in Whippany the next time you are in the Garden State, and be sure to reach out via the Fat Moose Comics Facebook page. Aw Yeah Comics celebrates everything that is wonderful about comics, toys, artwork, and the joy they bring to people. Visit them in person at one of their 3 locations, Harrison, New York, Muncie, Indiana, or Skokie, Illinois, home to our pal, Sweet Sweet Bernie. If you have children and have been looking for a family-friendly store, look no further. Join Aw Yeah for exciting events, including creator signings, how-tos, and more. Visit awyeahcomics.com and follow them on social media. Their name says exactly how they feel about it. Say it with me now. Aw yeah. So the remaining questions point towards the finale and what it might set up. So kind of on that note, right? We get this moment of revelation that Rick Flag Sr.'s goal here in obtaining the quantum unfolding chamber and accessing all of these other realities is to find a world that would be hospitable to use as a metahuman prison, right? That's what all of this has been building towards. And this is that alignment with Lex about the threat that metahumans pose. And so we get to the end of our finale here, and we have Chris Smith abducted and tossed into this dimension called Salvation, to sort of be the guinea pig to test this out before they start dumping metahumans in there. And we end on these roars from the woods around him, and we don't see anything, but it's obviously very foreboding. So that's kind of where we leave. Now, this does come straight from the comics. There was a limited series called Salvation Run around the time of Final Crisis. Did you ever come across this? Do you remember it?
No, I had no knowledge of it, but Twitter was all over it as when this episode ended. So I look, very James Gunn to just pluck some obscure thing that nobody knows about and make it the central focus of it, right?
Yeah. I definitely knew of that miniseries. I never read it, but I remember when it was coming out at the time, and that's the basic premise of it. In that instance, if I'm not mistaken, it's not another dimension, but it's another planet that they're shipping off the villains to, starting with the Flash's rogues, right? And then there are more, and obviously, things jump off from that point. But that's the basic gist of it. And in that miniseries, because I pulled it up on the DC app, it's there, in fairness. Okay. And, it starts off, it's Rick Flag and Amanda Waller talking about this plan. So they're in cahoots, and they're the ones who are setting this up. So, it definitely has its roots in the comics. I don't know beyond the premise, if it will adhere to that story at all. I don't know that it needs to.
Well, here's an idea, everybody. The first scene of Superman Man of Tomorrow is Lex and Superman both get thrown into it, and they got to work together to get there off the planet and fight all the villains. And maybe we'll see. That's just a prediction, knowing that that's potentially what's coming. So,
yeah, I could see that. And then the other big comic pull in those final moments of the finale that have already come up in the questions here is the formation of checkmate. God damn it.
Yeah.
What I just said, not canon to the podcast.
Not canon.
Right?
Not canon.
But checkmate. So you have the 11th Street Kids and a couple of the former Argus operatives, Judo Master, Tim Meadows' character, Sasha Bordeaux, who become disillusioned with Rick Flag and Argus. They join and they form checkmate and, just kind of public facing storefront with the name right
like
there.
At a mall. It's like, in Smallville, it was a cool castle in like Colorado or something, by the way. But here it's just like there's a Best Buy to the right and there's Chipotle to the left and Checkmate right in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, it's typically in both the comics and other media, like you mentioned, Smallville. Of course, we always go to that. Yeah, this covert operation, but different approach here. But I think people were excited to see the Checkmate name. So we had that. Jared also asked, what role do you think Peacemaker might now have in Man of Tomorrow, or what role do you hope he will have?
Well, I would have hoped that, again, getting back to the costume, I would have been more excited if they threw him in the alternate dimension in his costume, and his helmet and his stuff. Like he have a better chance to survive against these dinosaurs or whatever's over there in that. But no, I mean, that is now my prediction. My prediction is now Rick Flag tricks Superman to show up at some, facility, and Lex is there, and there's a portal, and he pushes Superman in, and Lex is like, "Good job, Rick," and Rick's like, "Yep, good job," and then he pushes Lex into and closes the door, and they run into Peacemaker at some point, and I guess the three of them have to fight all the villains and stuff. I mean, that's my prediction now. We'll see.
Yeah, as you say that, I feel like that's probably a fairly likely scenario for the movie. I mean, as far as Peacemaker himself in Man of Tomorrow, I would be surprised if it ended up being more involved than a cameo, but I could be totally wrong. As far as what I would want, that's kind of tough too, because I very much like the character. And like we're saying, John Cena's portrayal has been terrific. But at the same time, in a Man of Tomorrow movie where we really have this Clark-Lex pairing and hopefully more space for the Daily Planet crew and folks like that, I don't know how much I would really want devoted to Peacemaker. So I feel like a little bit of him would go a long way for me in the movie.
Well, then all those 8-year-olds out there can be like, "I love that Peacemaker guy. He has a show. Can we watch him when we get home, Dad?" Absolutely, son. Let's fire it up. Episode 1 of season. Oh my God.
Yep. Oh my goodness. All right. A couple more patron questions and comments here. This is from Jeff. He said, "I enjoyed this season more than the first one. Rick Flag Sr. has become unhinged. I wonder if Waller will unleash her creature commandos on him." Yeah, what did you make of Rick Flag Sr.? Because I felt like for most of the season, not that I was rooting for him, but you understand where he's coming from in his official capacity, trying to get a handle on this rogue technology, but on a much deeper, more important, more personal level, the fact that this is the guy who killed his son. But I do feel like in that last episode, especially when he's yucking it up with Luthor's underlings, when we see all of these incursions into the other realities. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this guy really lost the thread here.
Yeah, it felt very strange. It was hard to get a read on him ultimately all season, because I felt like he was saying, "Oh, this is top priority, for the good of Metropolis. We can't have another Metropolis incident. I need to find the Peacemaker," right? I mean, and that's the public face, but ultimately he's like, "I'm gonna get the son of a bitch because he killed my son." You understand that totally. But then, I'm like, I don't know. And then when he beats up Peacemaker, but then he has to get taken out, it seems like, yeah, he thinks I'm unhinged, but I'm not. And we're going to follow him. Like, oh, okay. He's playing some 3D chess here. But at the end, he's kind of unrecognizable. I didn't understand. It's like it's like Lex Luthor possessed his body or something. He's being so just evil at the end and so nonchalant. And there's that one moment where Harcourt's like, "Oh, you told me to call you Rick." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean is he under the influence of something? Was that just an act the whole time? I'm not sure what honestly, I I'm not sure what they were trying to say. And that goes to, I mean, a greater point we'll talk about a little more, I think, here is like, to me, the season finale felt like season 3, episode 1, not season 2, episode 8, because like sets up all these new things or the whole new status quos of all these characters and all these things, especially Rick Flag, who I thought, I don't know, I mean, like you said, like he kind of made sense until he didn't. And I found that very jarring in the finale, just his entire character really in the finale.
Yeah, it really felt like there was a big shift that was not accounted for. I'm glad you brought up the scene where he beats the crap out of Peacemaker, because then you do get that follow-up where it's like, oh, it wasn't just about unleashing this aggression. I'm sure that was a part of it, but
I'm sure
there was also this other plan to appear unhinged, but he's not actually. And if there were just something to account for this shift, did something happen to change him? Or had he really been keeping himself in check all along? Like what we had been seeing was this facade. I mean, I don't know. The thing that seems to set him off, he get that little note from Lex about like, this is very promising or something like that. And is he just under the thrall of Lex?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't be under the thrall of this guy, but that's just me. But I was accepting of all of it until this finale where he just became this radically different cartoon character, cartoonishly evil character. I thought, no, I totally get it. He's like, that's for Ricky when he throws him into the portal. That totally tracks. But like his nonchalantness about all his men being slaughtered didn't track for me, because I thought at least the guy is like cares about his job and his crew and all that, and I guess he didn't. It's just strange. I don't know if that's a reveal or if that's just bad writing. I don't know. We'll find out maybe in Men of Tomorrow.
Well, no, that's a great point, because I feel like that final moment where he tosses Chris into salvation and he says, "This is for Rick, you piece of shit." Like that would have landed more if he hadn't been so unhinged in the finale, if he was playing it straight. And then all of us at the end, it's like, no, like this really was what this was about for him deep down. And he got you. I feel like that would have played better than him acting as unhinged as he did without really, I mean, I put this to the audience. I mean, if there's something that, we're not picking up on that might account for this shift, please let me know. I will say though, on the note of Frank Grillo, this guy's 60. Like he looks amazing. This guy.
Well, it doesn't help with the whole senior junior thing, does it? When he's like, how old are you supposed to be versus Joe Kinnaman? I mean, like, what'd you have when you were 16, I guess?
I know. I mean, there are other military leaders in the DC universe, Sergeant Rock, Sam Lane, like you mentioned before. So there are alternatives. Although in fairness, it's like here by bringing in senior, then you have the grieving father angle. So, it works, but it definitely a bit curious.
Yeah, I really did like how Peacemaker wasn't fighting him back in their fight. He's like, "Well, fight me," or whatever. He's like, "No," and like that was a real the guilt of him killing Rick Flag Jr. Continues, and I think that's a very powerful layer to this character. So I like the intrigue. I just don't. It's again. I was cool with everything, but then until the finale, and it just kind of threw me off with the whole character Rick Flag Sr. We'll see. I have no doubt he'll be in Man of Tomorrow. He is the through line of this new DCU, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, him more than anyone I would expect to see in Man of Tomorrow. And then Jeff also says, I figured with Sasha Bordeaux involved, we would see Checkmate, but I didn't realize it would be so soon. Kind of cool. And I'm not really surprised who joined them in their endeavor. Yeah, I mean, is Sasha Bordeaux a character that you were clocking as you were watching this, or are you familiar with her from the comics at all?
I am not. She was not on Smallville's Checkmate, so to me, she didn't exist. I don't know. I was like, is she Cyborg? Is she the Cyborg of the DCU? I mean, is she a Cyborg in the comics?
Eventually, she does become one, basically. Yeah. So so this was a character. I mean, I don't know. It took me a couple of episodes to realize she was Sasha Bordeaux, but once I did, I was like, oh, I know her. This is its own conversation that will likely happen on another podcast not too long from now. But she was introduced in the Batman comics, like early to mid 2000s, during the Greg Rucka run on Detective Comics. She was hired by Lucius Fox to be Bruce Wayne's bodyguard. And she eventually figured out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. And then she ended up getting swept up in the whole Bruce Wayne murderer fugitive business. I don't know if you remember that storyline at the time, but she ends up in prison. She's attacked. That's when Checkmate enters the picture. and they fake her death, and then she becomes part of that organization, and she's involved with Maxwell Lord during the lead up to Infinite Crisis during that period of time. So she goes on this longer journey, and then Rucka wrote a Checkmate series, I think right after Infinite Crisis, if memory serves, and she was a fixture in that. So she has relatively deep comic book roots.
I have a question about her too in the finale, because I felt like she was on board with whatever Rick Flag was doing the whole time. Then I guess he was being flirty with her, like, hey, call me Rick. And I'm like, oh, what's that about? Like, I thought that might have just been how he like endears himself to people, because he tells the same thing to Hardcourt, at Ricky's funeral. Oh, call me Rick and all that stuff. And then Economos calls her his girlfriend. She's like, I'm not his girlfriend. And then we cut in this montage, they're sleeping together. So she is his girlfriend. And then she has this whole crisis of conscience during this episode. And I felt it was a little too quick, I guess is my point. That's why it felt like the beginning of a new season, because you could have maybe extrapolated things in between seasons, because she has been nothing but like sold out to Argus. I guess seeing all these people die in the other universes is what turned her on Rick Flag. But I felt like that, not nowhere near the extent of Rick Flag's, character turn, but I felt like hers was also a little accelerated in this final episode, Bordeaux.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that for me, for the most part, that montage of seeing all of the operatives getting killed in these other dimensions, seeing how much it's registering with her, having her observe how nonchalant Rick is being about it. I think there was like you said, certainly more than we got from Rick's side, but I think there was enough there. But yeah, it was still, that's the thing for a season with 8 episodes that probably could have been a bit less in certain respects. Yeah, there are some other angles that probably could have warranted a little bit more development. All right. And then last but not least, Brian Dempsey said, I am disappointed at the cliffhanger ending. I liked that season 1 really felt like a complete story by itself. We don't get enough of that. And if it gets to season 3, that will be a 2 to 3 year wait as well. Well, Brian, you don't have to worry about that. Right? James Gunn has said, he said never say never, but basically there are no plans for season 3.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if we got a season 3 of this, even though there's no current plans right now. I mean, it's different because there were always plans for a season 2 before any of this universe reboot happened, right? And I think, yeah. I mean, if there's no season 3, that's crazy. Like to kind of there should have been nothing after the Checkmate final shot, right? That should have been the last shot of the show, because you can't leave your main character in that kind of situation, at the end of your show. So we'll see how it all develops. I don't, in our episode recently talking about the DCU, we were like, well, I'm not Waller show. And I guess it's funny. I think my prediction was they'll fold the Waller show into Peacemaker season 3. I guess not. I guess the Peacemaker is going to become the Waller show, but Lee Waller, not Amanda Waller. That's my prediction now.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that or a Checkmate series, or, I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Plot wise, we need to see what happens with Chris. And like we're saying, the Man of Tomorrow movie is an opportunity, at least for a cameo. But I feel like whether it's that project or another film or TV show, like we'll account for him. And I mean, hopefully he makes it back home. I would like that for the character. But what I will say, like if we're not getting a season 3 and if they don't fold this into Waller and if we don't get a Checkmate series, I character-wise overall do feel satisfied with the journeys these folks went on and the place where they land for the most part. I'm not saying you can't tell more stories with them. Obviously you can, and I'm sure very likely Gunn will, but if this is it, I am generally okay with that.
Yeah. They've kind of taken on the characters to a new point now. I mean, they're happy, which is different for all, like there were all these misfits who didn't fit in, but they all found each other and now they found their happiness. So I'm like, where do you take it from there? I don't know. Maybe just Peacemaker going around doing stuff in his costume. but then it's like, well, then what do you want to have a point to tell a story. You don't just want to tell a story for no point. So, I mean, maybe they've all reached this, maybe the Peacemaker story has reached its natural conclusion. But then I say, Anthony, something that we have said before. Are you telling me that you kept all these characters and these stories from the old universe just to have one more season of 8 episodes and that's it? That's crazy talk. That's crazy to me. As much as I think we even said this in the last podcast, we enjoyed season 1, but not enough to just like say we have to keep these on through a universe reboot. So that's just strange to me. Like, you think Peacemaker would go for like 5 years and be the anchor of the new universe?
I know. I think I said in our last episode or one of our podcasts, like, I hope Peacemaker runs for 10 seasons so it's worth it that we didn't have this full reboot. So, but you also mentioned how, you know, there's a bit about them walking away. They've set up Checkmate. They're happy. They're in a good place. And then we have this turn. But you shared an article with me. Apparently that was Gunn's original intended ending for this, right?
Yeah. Apparently he had turned in his script, and the big group shot of the big Law and Order shot of them all walking through the hallway and all laughing and having a good time. All the characters are together, and you pan up and it's Checkmate, making the world better. Or I believe that's the tagline under Checkmate, which ties into Economos's line earlier. Like, when have we ever, anything we've ever done was for the good of the world? I thought that was a good way to pay off that line. But Peter Safran, the co-head of DC, I was like, hey, we can't end it like that. What else you got? And James Gunn is like, well, I did write this other tag scene where we throw Peacemaker into the void or whatever. And oh, we got to use it. So that's, it's kind of whiplash, honestly, because it's this happy ending and you feel good for everybody. And, you know, we probably went a little too long, these musical montages, but here we are. But that would have been a fine way to end it, you know? And if that, it really does feel like and they lived happily ever after, and maybe we'll bring them back and we'll have a new adventure with them at some point, but this chapter has ended. That would have felt more appropriate. So I think you'll never hear me say this again. I think James Gunn's instincts were correct in his initial draft to stop it where they just panned up the Checkmate, and that's the cap of your 2-season, you know, Peacemaker story. And then you throw this on here, and it's because it's not even like a post-credit scene. It's like literally the end of the episode. If it doesn't, see, now we're just cutting hairs. I'm like, I don't know. I would have felt better if it were a post-credit scene, because it would have been like connected but a little disconnected, and it's a tease, but it doesn't undercut what you just seen. How far in the future is that? Because now I'm like, were they happy for like a week and then he gets thrown into this dimension? Kind of really undercuts this happily ever after ending. So yeah, that's where I am at. I kind of wish that James Gunn had gone with the first draft for this situation.
I kind of agree. And I don't think it's splitting hairs. I think it does make a difference, a post-credit scene versus part of the finale proper. I think it does. So we've been talking about the finale, and I would say this is what I probably bumped up against the most. To me, it felt a bit anticlimactic, especially with respect to all of this emotional business between Chris and Harcourt, because throughout the season, there's been all this talk about the boat and what happened on the boat, and you're watching it and you assume, right? I imagine we all assume that, yeah, they kissed, or there was some romantic moment between the two of them and she freaked out. But I say to myself, as someone, you know, we've watched so many of these things, I'm saying to myself, well, that's what we're expecting. There's got to be something else to it. And then we finally get it. And no, it was exactly that. I mean, I don't know.
Interesting. I was like, oh, they definitely hooked up, you know, on the book, because we don't know what are we even talking about? It's
right.
like I guess thinking of The Office booze cruise. I'm like, is this what we're talking? Is this what we're talking about? They hook up in like an upper room or a bathroom? I don't know. Right. I actually kind of liked how like innocent it was, you know, especially with look at what this show does, where places it goes. I actually responded well to how innocent it was. Just a kiss. You know, just a very passionate but short kiss, and then she ran away, and it was kind of endearing that was what it was. You know? Yeah.
No, I didn't mind how innocent it was. That yeah, in a way, that actually was refreshing. But yeah, and I also, it's like I don't know what a better quote unquote twist would have been for me. I don't know, but it just felt like yeah, whether it was that they kissed or they had sex or like whatever, but like basically it was what we thought. So I don't know. That was a little bit of a letdown to me. But I think the bigger problem I had, and I think this problem exists whether or not we have the ending that Peter Safran encouraged Gunn to use. I think this problem is still there, which is, you know, the 11th Street kids, right? They're able to make this appeal to Chris. Oh, and even before that, right? You have Harcourt and Sasha now aligned, and Harcourt has this thing like, you got to meet a friend of mine. She has all these ideas, and then we see the conversation. We don't hear it, but clearly Ads is talking about what will ultimately become Checkmate. And Ads has a moment at one point where she's like, we got to stand the F up. Like, this is our moment. I don't know. I was thinking that they might attempt to get back this helmet, this portal, the dimensional portal, right? That they would have launch this attack on Flag's installation, and try to stop what he's doing, as opposed to just setting up this storefront.
Yeah, that's exactly what they should have done. Like that's what I'm saying. Like this feels like the season ended in episode 7, and this is either an epilogue or it's the first episode of the next season. And Peacemaker, he's been in jail, and they've been separated, and they all gone their separate ways, and they got to come back together. And you know what? We gotta start this organization. And we're gonna take them down. And this is like the start of them taking down Argus via checkmate. But it's like this is a call to action. It's like, we got to stop these guys. They got dangerous technology. This cannot stand. And then, yeah, they should have like stormed the gates and had a whole thing. And you could have had released some villains we haven't seen yet. The Argus has other villains to fight. I don't know. I totally agree. I just, and we got to talk about Earth X some, in this conversation here. We haven't talked about it at all, Earth X really. But to leave the last episode where we did, especially the tease of Keith not being dead, I thought, oh, well, for sure, they're going to go through all these doors and he's going to come out through there. And it's either going to be the cliffhanger where he shows up for Peacemaker, or that's going to be the big conflict, bring in some Earth X Justice League members, perhaps Supergirl or Superman versions. They're going to come through and have to fight the team. I don't know. But I think the reason we're all saying this stuff is it just felt like, I don't know. There was some great emotional scenes in the finale, right? Don't get me wrong, but it's like, and then it just felt like nothing happened, like as far as, I mean, emotional things happened, but like action things didn't happen. Are we shallow? I don't know. Let's talk about, let's explore this.
Well, I think call to action is an apt phrase. And I mean, I get from Gunn's perspective that Peacemaker deciding to stay and re-engage with this group and join them in this endeavor, the fact that you have those who had been working for Argus leave, right? Like that big moment, like that's the big climax. But yeah, I don't know. It's like there seems to be a very obvious action step that they could and should be taking, arguably. I was talking with my wife about this after we watched, and it's like, I don't know, I guess from their perspective, I guess they look at what Flag is doing with this metahuman prison and they don't think it's right. And clearly they don't like the way they got there with all of these test runs where all of these soldiers were getting killed. But I guess maybe to them, it's more like, oh, government doing what the government's going to do, as opposed to like, we have to get in there and stop it. I don't think that's the right conclusion for these characters to come to, but I don't know. Cause like, it's odd to me that it's not even something that's discussed.
It doesn't even occur to them.
Like there's not even a moment where one of them is like, we got to go get that. We got to get that helmet back. And someone articulates a reason why they can't or shouldn't.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need like, look, I know it would be great if we all felt like we could just bust down the doors of Argus and take it back, but here's why. And that unlocks it pretty well, I think. Also, we saw Bordeaux's shift, away from them. Judo Master, I guess. I mean, he bonded with Ads and Earth X, and then Tim Meadows, in that scene where Economos like puts an APB out for Peacemaker, and he's like, "Hey, it's good that you did that." I'm like, "Oh, look at him!" Like that him saying that in that moment is the only reason, other than also seeing all of his friends die. But like those things are like, oh, I guess that's why he flipped. But we saw no. It's kind of like Rick Flag, where it's like we just flipped the switch. I feel like I just missed 3 episodes, and now they're all a big happy family. It's like if somebody watched Smallville season 8, episode 4, and Tess is a villain, and then it's Smallville season 10, episode 12, and she's running Watchtowers. Like, whoa, what happened? I feel like that's kind of what happened with some of these characters, and it's so strange because I feel like there was a lot of padding this season, which I feel like wasn't last. I don't remember that last season that well. But I do feel like I didn't feel like there was any filler episodes, and I feel like this season they repeated some things and there was padding, and they could have taken some of that out and expanded a lot of what they tried to accomplish in this last episode over the course of 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. I love that moment we get to where Adrian Vigilante finally has somebody to engage with him in these quizzes about spiders or whatever else he claims to be an expert in. But yeah, I don't know, like the Tim Meadows character, that's an instance where I feel like based on what we saw, the more fitting end for him might have been he's still at Argus, but unhappy. You know what I mean? Like he's there and he realizes things aren't right, but I don't know. Him joining that felt like a little bit much. The others, I think we can account for a little bit better, but yeah, it was like, and as you're watching it, and I'm kind of mindful of the time as I'm watching. So I'm like, when's the big battle? Like, I feel like we don't have a lot of time left for this. And there was none. So yeah, I don't know. That was a head scratcher. And like, as we're saying this, generally, I don't feel like we're people who are like, no, you got to spell it all out for us. But I do think in this instance, there needed to be, because it just feels like the most obvious question in the world of like, why aren't they going in to try to get that helmet back? And it's just completely unaddressed.
Half step back about Tim Meadows. Like, I think I like Tim Meadows' character because he's Tim Meadows. I don't know if like, I think that's all there is to it. The bird blindness thing is just dumb. Just a dumb thing. So, my bird blindness. You took advantage of that. Oh, I thought it was a duck. I'm like, wait, what? It was just some gag you guys thought of at 2 a.m. in the writer's room and thought it was so funny, and you just stayed. Like, to me, cut that stuff out. I mean, like, am I supposed to be threatened by these characters? Am I not? Again, I like Tim Meadows, but it's like, I don't know. So tighten screws. Take a half step back. Here's the deal, right? I've been you guys know me, my commentary on James Gunn. I've been kind of a little hard and sarcastic about it. I think he's a great idea guy, right? And I think, if he just like, what I want to see? Story by James Gunn, teleplay by someone else, hand it off to somebody who kind of polish and take out some of these James Gunn isms, because that's what they are. That's what I feel they are. And you can kind of smooth off some of this weird stuff, because like, I liked this season, I guess, but like, I feel like I really would have loved it if it was less of this, just these absurd side tangents, like bird blindness and Michael Rooker over here trying to find Eagly in an orgy and that kind of stuff. Like, all these things I know come specifically from James Gunn. If you take those out, and then I feel like I could be like, oh yeah, man, then I could really engage more with that stuff and not be distracted every 15 minutes when we cut to some gag that keeps going past its due date. Does that make sense?
It does. And also with the Tim Meadows character, right? Like, from the jump, he's clearly out of step with current times in terms of what's appropriate or not to talk about, right? In terms of his descriptions of women and his sexual exploits and all of that. And you're watching it and it's like, okay, like, it's like he's very clearly set up to be, to be inappropriate, but it's like there's never any turn. There's never any comeuppance for it. Like, I don't know what the point of that was.
Yeah, I thought maybe that was going to be when Eagly killed them all, but Eagly only killed one of them. The other ones, when they go to storm his house, the first of 4 times. I thought, oh, well, they're all dead now. Good, because they're all kind of assholes. But then they didn't, and there was no, and then his comeuppance, he gets to work at checkmate. Like, okay,
yeah, things work out great for him. But the one other thing with the finale, and this might be really getting nitpicky, but it did bother me, where that great motel room scene where Ads makes this appeal to Chris, but then he seemingly turns them down, right? And they're all leaving, and then he comes out and he gets Amelia and says, like, the boat, like, did it mean anything to you? And she finally admits that it does. And then he goes back into the room and our theme song starts to play and fist bumps in the air and he's back. Like, I wish that he was already, if I could put on my director's hat and get in there, I just wish he had already been walking out with them. And then he has that conversation with her. And then he says, oh, I forgot something, right? And then he has this private moment of celebration. I wouldn't have changed much, but the way it played, it felt like what Adebayo said, like, wasn't enough. And he still needed that confirmation from Harcourt. And I just wish it had been the other way.
That makes sense. Yeah, because they were kind of leaving like as if he wasn't leaving with them at the beginning. I thought that was a great moment because, I think we can all relate to that. You find out the person you likes you, and you go off and you're like, yeah, like, I know I've done that at least a couple of times in my life, then a silly dance or something in private. That was a good moment, but you're right. Just recalibrating that a little bit. If I may also put on my writer director hat, Anthony, I think you got to restructure this season around that conversation. I mean, we haven't talked about Earth X. So can we get into Earth X? Yes. Okay. So, okay. I really like the concept. Again, story by James Gunn. I really like the concept of, like, you know what? you've tried really hard to reinvent yourself and it's not working and people aren't taking you seriously, but here's an opportunity to go to another world where not only does all your trauma not exist because all the family members who caused it or you caused it to are still alive. You're very successful. The people you love are there and they love you. And it's just, the people respect you. They recognize you. You're everybody's hero. I'm like, that sounds too good to be true. Why would you not go there? Right. And then you got to find out, oh, by the way, it's Earth X. They're all Nazis. I'm like, well, that makes it a very easy choice, doesn't it? Like, of course, you're not going to stay there and be a Nazi. So, to me, if you, and again, this is like super rewriting. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't have done this, but I think that hotel room scene was so powerful with all of them all coming together and talking. Like, that needed to be on the other Earth when they go to get him and convince him to come back to his life on our Earth instead of, oh shit, everyone's a Nazi. Well, we gotta go. Like, of course you gotta go if you're on Earth X. So I just think that was such a good like moment because, and I guess, I mean, to your point, like that's such a great moment. What's the follow-up? Like, did he join him? Did he not? Oh, they opened a storefront in the mall. Like, I don't know. That's where my mind went because I felt like the dilemma of the season, right? Of like, choose this life over the other Earth is pretty, I mean, to me anyway, is pretty obvious when the other Earth is Nazis. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, I'm a big fan of How I Met Your Mother. And there's the whole episode about like when you realize somebody's flaw, like the glass shatters. And as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah. Yeah. Because if the whole crux of this, that is him choosing between these two worlds. Yeah, you're right. It ends up being not much of a choice at all once he knows what it is. What's funny is that, I've been a defender of Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, but I know one of the criticisms people have had is like, all this business about Clark deciding to reveal himself to the world, that Zod's arrival forces his hand. It's like, it isn't a choice at that point. Like he has to. I've always pushed back against that. I feel like, no, there was still a choice that he needed to make. I feel like this is a much more egregious example where for Chris Smith, like it really can't be any choice. So, but it's just, I hadn't really thought of it in that way, but I think you're 100% right.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like, what if the core like character struggle was, should I stay or go? Right. Well, then obviously you need to go. And then also, and I saw this on Twitter somewhere. It's like the most Naked Gun gag of the entire series. It's like, you didn't notice that, and they cut to a mural of Hitler in front of the Capitol. I'm like, come on, guys, what are we doing here? Like, the CW did Earth X better. I've said it, and I stand by it.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say to the show's credit, when he heads over to this other world, and right, there are a couple of visitations before he decides he's going to live there. Mm-hmm. And watching this, that there has to be some catch. It can't something's all be this great. Now, I'll be honest, watching those episodes before the Nazi reveal, I was not picking up on the fact that there were no people of color. I think other folks watching it were savvier and they were clocking that. I was more zeroed in on the family aspect. Like that's where I was assuming the twist was going to be, that no, they're not actually this loving and heroes of this world, that there's something darker. So I actually was surprised when we got the reveal, and then doubly surprised in a great way when you actually find out that his brother and father, and the father especially, who really articulates it, don't subscribe to this Nazi philosophy that's baked into this world they've grown up in with its alternate history. So that was especially refreshingly surprising. Like I liked the way that played.
That was a great double twist because, I mean, as we know in season 1, his dad on our Earth is a literal Nazi. So on the Nazi Earth, he wouldn't be. And I liked how, like, he even said Robert Patrick, he was like, yeah, I ran into my doppelganger in there once. Look into his eyes. Something not right with that guy. And you're like, that's so interesting. I also really liked in the first episode, really, when he's explaining to Vigilante, when Peacemaker's explaining to Vigilante, like, oh, that's so cool. You met your other self. He's like, no, it's not cool. Something wrong about looking to your own eyes. I'm like, yeah, that would be unsettling. Like, we think it'd be cool. Of course, Vigilante thinks it's cool. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's like the line of the season, I think.
Yeah.
Meet each other. Because you think he turns around, he's all serious, and he's just as goofy as the other one. What do you take of, and what do you think the show was trying to tell us with Robert Patrick's character when he gets murdered like that. Because like, is that justice anyway? Is it badly timed, like just a bad misunderstanding? Is it a classic comedic undercutting of a very powerful emotional scene? I don't know. I liked it. A lot was going on all at once in that scene. I've seen a lot of people read into it very differently. Like, it's like, well, yeah, but he still deserved to die because like he wasn't really fighting the Nazis or whatever. And other people are like, you see, Vigilante ruined it all. And like Chris could have had his family back. Like, I've seen all these different interpretations about it. I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. What's your take on that?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I definitely don't for all of Gunn's sensibilities, I don't think it was meant to play for laughs. I mean, I could be wrong about what he intended, but I don't think so. I do chalk it up, like you said, to this kind of unfortunate, tragic timing on the part of Vigilante. I mean, had it not gone that way, and then, of course, at least the further battle with Keith and all of that. But like, I still don't, but that's a good question. It's like, I still don't think Chris would have stayed in this world. So I don't think
they were kicking him out to begin with, which shows you the character. He's like, all right, all y'all got to go back through that door. I'm changing the keypad. You're not coming back here anymore. But I mean, if he was as evil as we assumed he was based off our Earth, he would have killed all of them. Also Terminator reference. He's like, you want to live? Come with me. When he shows up, that was like, I really like that T2 reference.
Very nice.
Robert Patrick.
And look, I'm no sympathizer to any of the folks on this Nazi world, but when the father is giving this whole explanation about, and it says something to the effect of like, do you agree with everything that goes on in your world? It's like, we're living through things right now like that I very strongly don't agree with and would not want actions that our government is taking to be ascribed to me personally. So like that, that was really interesting. So yeah, it's like, I don't think that Vigilante cost Chris a happy ending in that world or this one by what he did. But at the same time, I don't know that I look at it as like the show saying like, oh, he deserved to die for being part of this world to begin. I don't know that it's that either.
I mean, that might be the most interesting, nuanced just situation of the whole show. Like, it's so interesting because I do think there are a lot of interesting ways you look at it, and it's not kind of black and white, which is the whole point of those characters and those alternate characters. So that just made it so much more interesting than just like, oh, everybody's over here is bad. We gotta, we gotta leave. But I really liked, like, in all these shows and comic books and all these stories when like you go to an alternate universe and you just totally ruin it and then you go back to your universe, like that moment where Keith is like grabs him, like, what did you do to us? I was like, damn, like I felt bad for him because this other guy has killed his brother and then totally destroyed his dad's dead, destroyed their way of life. I'm like, that's awful. If I were Keith, I would come after Chris as well.
Yeah.
So that was heavy stuff. Shout out to Roy from The Office. Yeah, I think he was great as Keith.
I know. Oh, I was very happy to see him in this. No, he's
good casting.
He's a good cat. Look, going back to those Office days, I mean, that could have been a very thankless role being Roy, but especially not to go off on that tangent, but especially in season 3 of The Office, where they did a little bit of character rehabilitation for Roy. I mean, I think he, really imbued that character with as much integrity as one could have. So yeah, I thought he was great. No, yeah, that I agree. That was definitely the most interesting and unexpected when you find out more about the worldview of the father specifically.
Yeah, because you could tell that the son is like kind of.
Yeah,
like
yeah. That's an interesting question too. Exactly, because he was leading the charge to grab ads, but so. Yeah, I think a bit of an open question about exactly what he thinks and believes, but I was happy to hear what we heard from Augie.
Mm-hmm. I just think there's so much more potential for Keith to come back, and that's why I was like disappointed. Like the natural ending of this season is for that confrontation to take place, and they're like, let's just introduce a bunch of other stuff that we haven't really talked about or care about all season. Now that's what the finale really threw me. I was just like, I was with the show, especially those last couple episodes, and it was really picking up and all clicking. It was all coming together. But that's why I do the whole armchair quarterback I do about what if they took that scene from the end and put it in the middle, and that's why he went back and that sort of thing. Because I don't know. Ultimately the point was he's supposed to think no matter what universe I go to, I'm the angel of death. I bring death everywhere. I'm not the peacemaker. I'm the death bringer. Right. So interesting. But I'm like, I guess I wasn't thinking in those terms up until that moment. I was thinking, like, would you go to another place where you don't belong if you felt like you didn't belong where you really do belong? Like, those are just high concept questions, which I enjoyed exploring that. So,
Yeah, interesting. Do you think that James Gunn was engaging in any political commentary in terms of the way in which Chris Smith was apprehended, bag over his head, thrown in a truck, dumped without any due process?
I mean, I thought that was Superman in the Superman movie, but I didn't really see that because Superman himself is an immigrant, right? I feel like that's the parallel there.
Not if you ask Dean Cain.
Chris Smith does not apply to Chris Smith, especially this version of Chris Smith. So I don't think so. Now, I mean, but again, I see those parallels with the Lex Luthor prison, where it's like you take people and you put them in a prison, nobody knows where they are, you just snatch anybody for any reason. Like, I felt like there were more parallels there than there were here for that particular point. I just thought this was normal government espionage with the bag over the head thing with him this time.
Fair enough. I did think it was funny when Harcourt was diagnosed with toxic masculinity.
Well, you don't see who the therapist is talking to, right?
Right, yeah.
In that scene, you're like, oh, he's obviously talking to Peacemaker, and you cut the Harcourt. She's like, what the fuck?
Yes. I also loved when they're at Vigilante's house and Adrian has clearly told his mother that he's in a relationship with Harcourt. And I do love how she calls her hardcore and she's like, no, it's Harcourt. A lot of people make that mistake. That was funny. The bit about Vigilante having this massive stash of confiscated drugs and money was fantastic. I thought that was so funny. It was so in keeping with his character that he'd be like, I don't touch it. I love
money, man.
I love when the other ones are stuffing it in their clothes when his back. That was great. I love that. And the physical bit of Chris trying to deal with the body of his murdered doppelganger and how it keeps rolling out.
Yeah.
You know, look, I've said it enough times about how the James Gunn sensibilities don't always land with me, but for whatever reason, that one did.
Well, we've all been there. We've all tried to stuff, not a body, excuse me, but like we've all. Let's be clear. But like you're trying to stuff something somewhere, it just doesn't stand where it should. And you're just like, oh my God, get this thing going on. No, there were a lot of great physical gags in here, right? I loved I love when Vigilante goes to his house in the other universe and he's in so much joy looking like, look, they're cats. What do cats have to talk about? And then when he finds the Cheerios box with the H in it, he's like, oh, I'm keeping this. Like just his childlike joy over the differences was pretty fun. Now, in a darker undercurrent of that, he's like, well, look, my dad's not gay in this universe. Well, he probably is, but he can't say that because you're on Nazi Earth. So that, again, that ties in the greater thing as well to Nazi Earth, to tie all these things together too. So lots of great moments. I also loved a line that stuck with me or whatever, which really funny was it's when Chris is in the alternate dimension talking to Harcourt, and they're on the bench. He's like, yeah, I've been really working on myself, all the trauma I've dealt with. And she's like, and my delts. And he's like, yeah, always my delts. Like, I just thought that was just funny, just silliness. See, look, I like humor. Okay. For the record, I can laugh at these things and have a good time. I just want to recalibrate just a little bit because as James Gunn has said, this is a direct prequel to Superman Man of Tomorrow. And I'm just thinking, will someone think of the children, Anthony? That's what I say. Think of the children.
Yeah, I know a lot of this. We talked about the things that we didn't like. Clearly, though, there are aspects we enjoyed. But I'm with you. I do think had it ended with episode 7, with Chris turning himself in, right? Or if episode 8 had played out differently with some of these fixes that we've been talking about, I think I'd have a very different overall impression on the season.
Yes.
I think that's what a lot of it comes down to. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
No, I do want to reiterate that because I feel like I'm always like the negative guy in all these conversations. But you know what? We're playing. Who wants to hear two people agree the whole time? Right.
Yeah.
But
although I don't know how much we've disagreed, but
here's the deal, right? I think that as I said off the top, if there was no episode 8 or episode 8 is very different, as you just said, I think we'd be having a very different conversation here about how the season went. But we're all just like, and I feel like I look around online and I feel like this is a very polarizing or upsetting finale. A lot of people are upset by it, or a lot of people just don't know what to make of it. Really, it doesn't ruin the whole season or anything, but it makes you go back and look at, what else could have been different? Like when something wins you over start to finish, you're like, well, that's how it is. That's great. But when you see like, that was weird, and you start thinking about, what if they did this and that? Then that's where you play this whole game that we're playing here. But yeah, I think, a lot of, to reiterate some of the other things we said, I think all the performances were great this season. I think ads is definitely the standout. If she leads the Waller show as I predict, I think that's great. I think she's proven that she can lead that show. And again, all the characters and the acting was A+ for all the main characters, the 11th Street gang. Gang. I think I call them that because the Justice Gang. Excuse me, the 11th Street Kids. I think I've done that a couple times. The 11th Street Kids, even them just hanging out on the rooftop, having those human moments. When he the fishing reels throw over to him, and they're having a whole moment. And again, physical comedy, right? Hit or miss, but when they keep trying to throw Economos a beer and he keeps dropping it.
Yeah,
he's like, why don't you just hand it to him? I don't know where the line is between when I'm cool with these jokes and when I'm not. But that's already, I'm just saying these things to prove that I like comedy, everybody. But ultimately it was a fun ride up until the end. And it didn't ruin the show or anything, but I felt like, I don't know. I felt like season 1 overall was a stronger season, maybe, but I haven't rewatched it. I couldn't, I really can't speak with authority on that.
Yeah, I think it was overall more satisfying. That's at least my memory of it. And I think with this season, by comparison, it had a slower burn to start, but it really, for me, really did get going and I was into it. But I think part of why I was into it was kind of anticipating a stronger finish to the season. And so that's why it just didn't really get there. And I think there are certain critiques, which we've already shared, that, from our perspective, I think are valid in and of the show itself. Then there's also the other angle where, yeah, especially after Lex showed up and we're told this is the Man of Tomorrow prequel, literally in one of his posts, which maybe we're reading too much into. But yeah, and the fact that there was that photo floating around on social media of David Cornsweet in costume, visiting the Peacemaker set. Now, to be fair, Gunn said in interviews that Cornsweet wasn't in it, right? That it was just going to be there was some interview, some quote at some point, but I didn't believe him. But it's is that his fault or mine?
Yeah,
my fault. Yeah. But so there was that sense, or it's funny because our mutual friend in podcasting, Tyler Patrick, before the finale, he was like, "Who do you think's going to show up?" And I replied with Jimmy Olsen. I would have been over the moon to see Jimmy Olsen or Perry White or Lois or anybody. So I did think we were going to get something else.
See I replied to Tyler with the Billy Alcock Supergirl from Earth X. That's what I thought. That was my prediction as well. So, and it's not that we didn't get these cameos and so the finale was a failure or anything. That's not the critiques are making. We didn't see Superman fail. That's not it. And I think people might think that because, season 1 had the Justice League and that was the big thing. And that would not, Superman could have shown up in this finale at the end and we'd still have the same, comments and problems we have with it. Yeah, it's not like the worst finale ever. I've seen, how people are hyperbolic about this stuff, right? The worst wasted season of my life, after watching, that, seeing that episode. But yeah, I would still watch these characters again, and I think that's the judge of it. Like love, hate, indifferent, in between. If you would continue watching these characters and the next thing they're in, then it's still successful. And I would.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just I know I said this at the beginning, but the fact that we had all these other dimensions and there were no cameos, it was just surprising. But you sent me an article, or I sent you an article. Apparently, we almost had Deadpool of all people.
Oh my goodness! I forgot about that already. Thank you for bringing it up. That's crazy. And again, James, take a step back. Even James Gunn in that article, he said, "I probably shouldn't have said this." Yes, you shouldn't have said that. Why would you even admit to thinking that, right? I think that would be crazy. That's a Pandora's box we don't want to open. That is not the thing to do.
Yeah, it was, and according to him in that interview, was Ryan Reynolds was interested, but there were some really big hoops they'd have to jump through, and it didn't move forward. But it's just one of those things where it's whether that was the first or the only thing he thought of while making the show, we don't know. But it's the one thing he said in that. It's of all the things to think of or to say about potential cameos in this early DCU project, anything. Blue Beetle, he was the first character of the DC universe.
He was. We're still waiting on him. Yeah.
Anybody. It's just odd to me. The one thing you say is a Marvel characters. Come on. But Anyway, that was fascinating. I was that headline definitely stood out to me. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I thought for sure we could open up a door and see some DC thing, because I don't think any of those things were DC things, right? That we saw in all those doors.
Not
to my knowledge, anyway.
Yeah.
And I know they don't want to, like, lock themselves into anything too specifically as they build this universe, but I'm sure they could have found something that would have been like, oh, look at that, I know what that is, and then you never have to talk about it again. But if we go back into this quantum realm, we'll see. But by the way, I really did like how we found out how they even got access to this. There was some like Peacemaker and his brother and his dad were out hunting in like the 90s or something. I don't know when this was. And they just shoot some alien and they steal his technology. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. I did wonder, like, I don't know which character said it to Chris. Like, I just thought your dad was some kind of like super genius or something. He's like, no, he wasn't. That's interesting to me. And I think there's still more to that story maybe to be told, because don't they ask him about like, the helmets and stuff? And he's like, oh, it's a long story or something. So teasing more things for the future. But I did question, like, how did Robert Patrick invent this technology, right? So I'm glad they put some light onto that. And that's intriguing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to harp on the Deadpool thing, but the last thing I'll say on this, if you were considering a cameo and Ryan Reynolds popped into your head and you're in charge of DC, maybe you would think about having him as the DC character he played, i.e.
Wow.
Hal Jordan. It's just a thought.
Yeah. Just open it up and just have footage of the Green Lantern movie. You don't have to shoot anything.
Right.
I mean, seriously, right? I mean, I'm sure they could have done something. Maybe then a voiceover, like through the door. See, man, now I'm upset.
Yeah.
I'm upset.
But anyway, look, like I said at the top, I had fun watching this. My wife and I had a good time. We looked forward to it every week. We laughed multiple times during each episode. And, so regardless of what gripes we might have, it was a fun ride. And I still remain interested and excited about where the DCU goes from here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on to talk about this. I enjoyed discussing it with you. I hope people don't get tired of me and my takes about James Gunn and the DCU. I know that I have a certain flavor of my takes that, people may or may not respond to, but, I just tell it how I see it. And I'm going to keep, again, my tickets are bought. They have my money. I'm going to keep watching all this stuff. So we'll see what comes next in Supergirl and then in Man of Tomorrow and in whatever form we see Chris Smith again.
All right. What would you like to share with folks about Always Hold On to Smallville?
Well, Always On to Smallville has completed its episode by episode rewatch of the TV show Smallville. I think I've said that now the last couple of times I've been on your podcast, but
we get it. You're done.
Yeah. It's like, but we do have, and as you know, behind the scenes, Anthony, we're going to tease the listeners here. We are hard at work behind the scenes on a fun project that's going to launch the start of the year, 2026, on Always On the Smallville feeds. Stay tuned. Stay tuned and stay subscribed, because we're going to drop a really fun project on Always On the Smallville that is Smallville centric, I might add. So stay tuned for that. Obviously, when Superman stuff comes up, we're going to continue to talk about that, but have a good time. And always fun to have you and all the other familiar voices over there. And we're going to keep it going. So, yes, follow us on Always Smallville with 1S on social media for some more fun Smallville and Superman talk.
Right on. No, I know what it is. I'm excited. I'm honored to be a part of it. And I think people are really going to enjoy it. So, yeah, everyone stay tuned for that. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, audience. Keep tuning in. And until then, as always, it's about what you do. It's about action. This podcast is an affiliate of BCW Supplies. The next time you need to restock on comic book bags, boards, boxes, and more, be sure to use promo code FSP to save 10% on your order. That's FSP for Flat Squirrel Productions. It helps support the show too. Thank you. By popular demand, Digging for Kryptonite merch is now available at our TeePublic store. Visit the link in the show notes to get your DFK shirts, hats, mugs, and more. Support the show and receive exclusive content, including the spin-off podcast Beyond Metropolis, by becoming a member at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. My sincere thanks to all patrons. Please subscribe, rate, and review today via your platform of choice, and continue the conversation by joining us on social media. Flat Squirrel Podcast is also home to another exciting episode in the adventures of Superman. now covering the color era of the classic George Reeves series. Subscribe today. Digging for Kryptonite is a Flat Squirrel production. Key art by Isaiah Simmons and theme music by Dan Pritchard.